75% of women give birth on their actual due date. So why do we treat it like a deadline? My name is Jamie, also known as your midwife bestie. I've been attending births for over a decade. If you've given birth, let me know in the comments below if you went early, on time, or after your due date. First, let's start with the fact that it's called estimated due date. A due date is based on an average, meaning 50% of women will give birth in the weeks leading up to the due date and 50% of women will give birth in the weeks following the due date. That is just the date that falls in the middle. So there's a whole month in which that would be normal, but somehow we treat the baby as if they are late if they don't come by that date. A due date is calculated by taking the first day of the woman's last cycle, assuming she has a 28-day cycle, and assuming that she has ovulated on day 14. Now, if your cycle isn't textbook, this rule already doesn't apply to you. To make matters even more complicated, ultrasounds may alter the date by a few days or even a few weeks. Now, early ultrasounds tend to be the most accurate because there's really only a certain size that babies can be early on in pregnancy. But anatomy scans, which are the ultrasounds done around 20 weeks, are more likely to be skewed based on genetics and less accurate for dates. So if you go and check on the baby and they give you a date that the baby is measuring a week ahead, do not change your expectations based on that ultrasound. So basically, we start with one guess, which is the period, and we alter it based on another guess, which is ultrasounds that can vary by 1 to 2 weeks. But early ultrasounds are more accurate versus later ultrasounds, especially as you get closer to the due date. So this is wild to me. One day I had a friend explain to me that they thought their dog may be pregnant. By their calculations, if their dog became pregnant, they would give birth on this exact date. Now, as a midwife, I was very surprised to hear this. And also, she was pregnant. And ironically, those dates were very similar for her and the dog. Now, I said, how can you know which day the dog will give birth? Don't they also have an estimated date range of which they give birth? And she said, well, kind of, but it's typical that a dog gives birth 63 days after they conceive. So if she conceived, she will give birth on this day. Now, you can imagine I was on pins and needles leading up to this day to see if what she said is actually true. And boy, was I surprised when I texted her that day and found out that the dog had in fact given birth that day. Now, how is it that we can calculate down to basically a day when a dog gives birth, but humans, we have this 5-week window? This really blows my mind, but here we are. So as much science and information we have, we don't actually know what triggers a mom to go into labor. We suspect it has something to do with hormones and the baby's lung development, giving the mom's body the signal it's ready to be born. But what that exact switch is, we still haven't nailed it down. Not only do babies play a huge factor in it, genetics do. So if you're pregnant, find out what your family history is. If your mom and your grandma and your great-grandma were known for going overdue, chances are you probably will too. Recently, I had a woman who went 42 weeks, and we decided to do an induction based on protocols for 42-week pregnancies. Now, after I was talking to her postpartum, she said, you know, it's funny, when my mom came to visit, she mentioned that she went overdue with all of her babies up to even 43 weeks. I laughed and thought that might have been helpful information to know prior to her birth. Not only does family history play a part in it, but also what number baby it is. First-time moms typically go overdue, and on average they deliver at 40 weeks and 5 days. So even though most of them will claim there's no way I'll make it to my due date, I can't get any bigger than this, you'd be surprised. Not a time to be throwing out statements like that. So your body and your baby decide their birthday, not a calendar. So what is the problem with treating due dates like deadlines? Well, a few things. First of all, the anxiety that comes with it. If a doctor is treating a due date like a deadline, you're gonna feel like a ticking time bomb as it approaches. So you may feel pressure from your provider to sign up for an induction, or you may be feeling pressure from friends and family who are very excited about this baby. On top of that, it's not uncommon for moms to doubt their ability to give birth if they don't go into labor by a date that feels like a deadline. And let me tell you, that's the last thing a mom needs before going into labor is a lack of confidence. Not only that, anxiety increases cortisol, which actually decreases the mom's odds of going into labor when in fact they need oxytocin and to feel comfortable and supported and confident for their body to relax enough to then go into labor. Sounds complicated, but stress equals no baby, love and support equals more likely the baby will come sooner. If you're early on in your pregnancy, I strongly encourage you to keep the actual due date a secret from people that are not required to know. You can say things like a generalized time frame or even add 2 weeks to the due date and tell people baby is due around that time to avoid pressure, stress, and a lot of well-meaning but kind of irritating check-ins from grandma asking if the baby's here yet. Your due date isn't an expiration date, it's just an estimate for when your story may begin. For more information on pregnancy, birth, and the postpartum period, hit subscribe and follow along.